Okay, so this is your box. I've already opened mine and taken out some of the contents, but yours are bagged together and whatnot. But this was one of our VIP clubs. Usually our VIP kits are launched with new products, but we've also just recently started integrating creativity kits. So we're putting these out periodically. These are not with a new product launching, but they come with all the tools needed to create a project step by step, and it's designed that anyone of any skill level can complete it. So with this little insert, you'll see all of the products that are included in the kit, and then a little bit of information about all of them. And these are all different products that Gina just talked about. And with this insert, actually on the back side is this little butterfly that you can use as a silhouette to trace for the project. So that's the insert, and then inside here is the little card showing you exactly how to create the project. So on the flip side, it has all the step outs for the project. So I'm gonna just quickly walk through all of these so you can see how it works. So I've actually already traced my butterfly just to get a head start. So I just used a pencil and traced that silhouette directly into my watercolor spiral notebook. So this is on watercolor paper. So the very first step for this project is our glue pen, which is this little slender guy here. So this actually, it's a pen style body and it has glue adhesive inside of it. So you can use it as a glue to glue things like glitter and small little embellishments, but today's project, we're not actually using it as a glue. We're gonna put it onto our paper, and once it dries, when we put the markers on top of it, it's gonna actually resist the color and it's going to have white pop through the paper. So we currently don't have a white pen at this point, but this is one way that you can kind of achieve that white look. So on your project card, and this little image here, the designer shows examples of like where you can put the glue onto the butterfly. So to start doing that, you just take the cap off and you just start applying the glue to the paper. And it comes out clear, so it's kind of hard to see, but if you twist your paper, you can see in the light where it kind of shines, and you can see that the glue is coming off of the pen. So you're just going to continue that across your whole page, and you just use it like a regular pen and just add all the glue. And once that whole page is filled out, you're going to want to stop and wait for a couple minutes, a minute or two, until it dries completely. And you can actually touch it to see if it dries. It's pretty quick drying. So you'll fill out the whole page. And to save time, I've actually gone ahead and filled out a whole page already and let it dry. And you can kind of see the reflection in my light here, all the glue spots that are on my butterfly that have already dried. So that is the glue pen. The next step, step 2, is going to be adding color using our dual brush pens. So this set has the 4 dual brush pens, which Gina talked a lot about, with the brush tip on one side and the bullet tip on the other side. With this, since we're coloring in an image, and it's fairly large space, I'm going to use the brush tip. So the instructions say just to start with the lightest color in the center and work your way out. So I'm just going to stay inside my silhouette and just start coloring on this page. These pens are water-based, so that's how we're using them today, is more of like a watercolor technique, because we're going to add water onto this image in the next step, and you'll see how they react with water. And like Gina said, they're really popular for a lot of different trends, watercolor, hand lettering. The way that it works for hand lettering with this brush tip, it's super flexible. You can actually push down way, 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 way harder than you think you should and smash that barrel down, and you're not gonna mess up that nib. It's a really high quality nib, and it's gonna bend right back into place. So especially when it comes to lettering, that's the one thing that I see is the most common that people can't figure out how to achieve their thick and thin strokes, is they're just not pressing hard enough. So press really, really hard when you're going down and really lightly when you're coming up. And that's the trick for the lettering. So continuing on with the color, I'm just moving to the next darkest color and working my way around. And you can see as I'm overlapping these two colors, the color actually starts to change as they overlap. And that's just because of the water-based ink and how blendable it is. If you're working and your nib ever starts to get dirty, a lot of times if you have a lighter color and you color over it with a darker color, you'll see that color pick up on your nib. All you have to do is get a scrap sheet of paper, scribble it out, and it's self-cleaning. It'll return back to its normal color. So finishing up this color here, then we'll move on to the dark blue. I'm also, as I'm filling this in, one, trying to stay inside the lines, obviously, because don't want to go too crazy, but also you don't have to go all the way to the edge, because when we apply the water, the color is going to start moving around the page, and you can kind of just push it out to the edge as needed. So there's my blue, and then lastly, I'll just add some dark black around the edges. And you can see as I'm going how this marker is not going on to those dried glued spots. You see all the dots and crosses and everything poking through. All right. So now that we've got all of the dual brush pen down, we're going to move on to the water brush. So in your pack, the water brush hasn't been opened yet, so there's no water or anything in the barrel. It's really easy to fill. What you're gonna do is unscrew it right here where the green and the clear meet. So you just twist it open and it comes apart. And you can just take this to the sink and just fill it up with regular water. So whenever you're working with a water brush, you're gonna wanna have some paper towels nearby so you can clean off the tip as needed. So opening up the cap, the way that you get the water to flow is you squeeze this clear part of the barrel right here. And you just squeeze it a little bit until you see the water droplets begin to form and come out of the bristles. A lot of water brushes, if you squeeze lower on the brush, it'll come out, but we've designed ours specifically for the squeezing to happen up here, so that when you're holding the pen naturally and you're working, you're not accidentally squeezing water out and having too much flow come out as you go. So what I'm gonna do to get started is work again from the inner to the outer. And as I'm going, if I see the colors starting to get a little muddy and I don't like how they're mixing together, I'll just stop and clean off my brush before starting on to the next color. So I'll just squeeze the barrel a little bit, get some water to flow out, and apply that to the page. And then I just kind of work in round circular motions, going through all of the light green first. See, I got some black there, and I don't want to carry that black to the rest of the image, so I'm going to go ahead and just squeeze some water, clean off my brush, and then continue working. And you can see the color just move across the page as you do this. You don't want to use too much paper, you don't want to, I mean, too much water, you don't want to oversaturate your paper and just leave puddles on it. So just be careful with how much you're squeezing and how much water flows out. So now I'm moving on to the next color, and you can see them blending together and getting that smooth transition between the colors. And I'm just going to continue on. And again, with this, you can see the glue pen underneath, how it's resisting the water as well as the marker, and it's giving those white spots coming through. And then just move on to the darkest colors. And we'll just quickly make sure it goes all the way to the edge. I love my silhouette. And you can pull the dark colors down into the lighter colors if you want to give it a different effect. Just play around with it and see how they react together.
Yours is beautiful. Mine will look no way like that.
I promise you, you will be shocked. Because when I did it for the first time, I was like, huh, I wonder how this is going to work. And I finished it and I was like, oh, wow. And like when everyone got their kits from the VIP club, I mean, it's probably one of the most beautiful like social media posts that we've seen. Like everyone started posting their projects, and we literally didn't see a bad one. That's the cool thing about it. You just have to go slow and see how the colors mix, but they'll all turn out beautiful. All right, so it looks like my butterflies about done. From here, you'll want to give it a minute just to let it dry. I have a lot of water on mine. You can kind of see the colors rolling around as I move my page, so I probably put a little bit too much water. But you'll want to let it dry completely, but in the sake of moving fast, I'm going to kind of just dry it off a little bit myself. And we're going to move on. That actually turned out really cool on the paper towel. We're going to move on to the Mono Twin, which is the permanent marker that Gina talked about. This also has 2 tips to it. So a bullet tip on one side and then an extra fine tip on the other. This is permanent ink, so applying it to the page, even if it's still wet, it's not going to be an issue. It's not going to float around from the remaining water. But with this permanent, I'm just going to outline my butterfly just to give it a defined edge to the silhouette. This is an optional step, totally up to your personal preference. Some people like the look of the more organic edges. I've also found that sometimes instead of adding color into a pencil tracing, I actually like to apply the permanent ink to my paper first, just so I have a more defined area to color in, because sometimes I'm not that great at staying the lines, and the dark color kind of helps me. And again, since it is a permanent ink, applying the water to it is okay. It's not going to shift around. Finish this up, the antenna. And now we've got our outlined butterfly. And then the last step to the project is the Furinasuki. So this is one of the colors from the 10-pack set. It's the blue. So it's a brush tip as well, similar to the dual brush pen, but obviously you can see that this brush tip is a lot smaller. So when you're doing things like lettering, this is good for a lot smaller scale lettering, like envelopes and seating cards and things like that. So in this project and these steps, she actually used the Furinasuki inside of the butterfly to just add some embellishments. So as like this dark blue turns into the lighter green, just kind of adding some embellishments to the piece just to make it stand out a little bit. And again, with a flexible brush tip, you're gonna push down hard to get a thick stroke and lightly to get a thin stroke. So I can change up, I can vary the size, the width of these lines that I'm drawing, just to give it a different look. And then one other option, if you are skilled in lettering or want to practice your lettering skills, you could use this to then letter something onto the image. Just trying to think of a good butterfly saying earlier, and I couldn't really think of anything, but I saw someone wrote "spread your wings," so I'll just write that really quick. And mine is still a little wet, so it's kind of gotten on my hand a little bit, so I'm just gonna cover it so I don't smear it anymore. And we'll just write. The thing with the Fudenosuke is to get the ink to come out smoothly, you want to go nice and slow. That's kind of the trick with lettering anyways. Slow and steady wins the race. A lot of the videos you see online are heavily sped up. People think you have to go fast, but the slower you go, the better. The more controlled your strokes will be, and then also the more controlled the ink flow will be. If you make really fast strokes with the Fudenosuke, the ink comes out pretty streaky. So that's always, if we ever have someone reach out and complain that the ink is dry, the first thing we say is, what paper are you using it on, and are you going slow? Because the slower you go, the smoother it'll come out. So that is a very quick demo of the finished project.